look, I don't regret it at all. I mean, I wouldn't have changed any of it, man. It was like I got to Hollywood at the fucking perfect time, man. I mean, the week we got there was just the best, meet Dave, we start Megadeth, on it goes, and just to, and again, I kind of consider that, that was divine for both of us. He needed a real right hand man who was going to frickin' be there, and that was me. And I needed someone to frickin' pilot the jungle, and he knew his shit, and he grew up around the area, and I'm thankful for him every day. Despite all of it between me and Dave, I'm always thankful for him that he was the big brother to help me get through that, because just a kid from the farm landing in Hollywood, that's. Like they make Rock of Ages, isn't that about that with Juliana Hough? Isn't that her character? I mean, that's me, that would have been me, but yeah. So look, it all worked out, right? So it's all good.
Hey, what's up, Vox&Hops heads? I'm Matt, the vocalist of Cryptopsy and the host of the Vox&Hops Metal Podcast, brought to you by Sound Talent Media and Evergreen Podcasts, where I sit down with fellow metal musicians, talk all about their lives and music while sharing craft beers. This Vox&Hops episode is presented by Heavy Montreal. Heavy Montreal are Montreal's premier metal promoter, and trust me, if you are ever in Montreal and you want to go see a killer show, Heavy Montreal will have you covered. I am beyond stoked to have Heavy Montreal behind the Vox&Hops Metal Podcast. Now, before we jump into today's episode, I'd just like to ask you to follow the Vox&Hops Metal Podcast on the podcast platform of your choice. But more than that, I would love for you to tell a friend about the podcast. If there's someone in your life that just loves in-depth, interesting conversations, well, you should definitely let them know that the Vox&Hops Metal Podcast exists. You could tell them that there are over 400 episodes where I sit down with fellow metal musicians and we go deep. We talk about their lives, we talk about their childhood, we talk about life, metal, and craft beer, of course. If you would encourage one of your friends to become a brand new Vox&Hops head, that would be something that I would truly appreciate. Now, today on the podcast, I'm very stoked to be with David Ellefson of Dieth. Get ready, everyone. This is Vox&Hops episode number 411.
I warn you, what you are about to hear is very disturbing indeed.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Today I'm very stoked to be with David Ellefson of Dieth. David, this is so cool to be with you. We've met once before. I imagine you will not remember this, but I remember it. It was at Milwaukee Metal Fest a long time ago. I was there with my band 3 Mile Scream. I'm actually going to dinner with my old bassist, Mike Marino, tomorrow. We were signed to Corporate Punishment Records, which is Tom Hazard's record from label from back in the day. We had driven hours and hours from Montreal to get to Milwaukee Metal Fest, and it was a bit of a bust. It wasn't very cool whatsoever, but it was cool talking to you, and I remember that very much. So how are you doing?
Awesome. Well, I'm glad at least this part was a good memory. So
100%, but the show itself was not worth the how many hour drive it was from Montreal.
Yeah, like so many of them are, you know what I mean?
It happens.
Like, isn't that the truth? You kind of weigh it out. It's like, it's like, oh, well, it's good. Anytime they say, well, it's good exposure, that right there is like already,
that's trouble, that one. That's
you'll be abused, treated horribly, not paid at all. The food will suck, and it'll probably be, who knows?
I drank. I remember we went to the store, and I know that you're sobers, but I'm a beer podcast, so I remember going to the store and buying Miller High Life, the champagne of beers, and we tried to enjoy our night later after the show.
That was my very first beer. So it's funny. I was preemptive with this. Said, "Hey, do you want to do this podcast? It's about beer. I know you don't drink, And I said, "Yeah, look, it's cool." I said, the problem isn't when the alcohol goes in you; it's when it goes in me that it causes the problem.
Yeah.
It's hey, beer is perfectly fine for most people. So it's funny, So I grew up. 8 hours to the west of Milwaukee, since we're centering it there, right? And Miller beer was my very first beer that I drank, actually in the little pony. So it was Southern Comfort, peppermint schnapps, and the little pony size, Miller, which it was the champagne of beers. I liked it. It was a great. It just looked good. It looked like on a hot summer day out in the fields in Minnesota and the farm where I grew up, it was like, it just looked like it would be refreshing, so.
It was definitely refreshing. It wasn't very effective. We didn't realize how low of an ABV it had, but we had a good time nonetheless. And definitely it looked fancy.
Funny thing is, growing in Minnesota was, you had to be 19. And of course, I was not of that age when I started drinking. I was 15, right? So you got to get someone to buy it for you. Part of the high school hijinks, right? And then then on the weekends, you know, and you could only get beer at liquor stores, right? So the liquor stores were closed on Sunday. So Sunday we would go, you could either go, if you lived in Minneapolis, you'd go over the border into Wisconsin and you could buy at the grocery stores the 3.2% beer, which basically is just an excuse to have to pee a lot, you know, and you don't really get much of a buzz, right? And same, so for us in the southern Minnesota where I was, we'd drive over the border to Iowa down to Spirit Lake and Lake Okoboji, which was, you know, the summer party area. And so we could buy it there at the well, the Come and Go, right? Became the famous, you know, the famous you know, well, Quick Trip, I guess, is what you have in Wisconsin, or what they have in Wisconsin, Casey's, in other parts of the world it would be 7-Eleven and Circle K. But
or up here in Montreal, the Dep, as we call it, the Dep. We are very lucky here that they sell beer at the Dep until 11 p.m. and we can start drinking at 18. But as we know, it starts earlier than that.
Of course, that's all.
If you're open to discussing, on my side, I am drinking something. I'm not drinking a beer out of respect to you. I have a very cool tea here, which is a collab with my band Cryptopsy, with Pitch Black North, the satanic tea company out of Calgary, Canada. This is a Nun So Vile, play on words of our classic album Nun So Vile. This is a black tea with lavender and hops. Anything I'm involved in obviously has a bit of hops in it. It's good. I've had it for over a year now, and it's still just as good as it was.
I commend you for putting hops in it, because the trend has become CBD, right? Oh, we put CBD in it now. So I did some tea like that. You know, when we started the Ellefson Coffee Company, I considered, should it be Ellefson Coffee and Tea? Because, you know, not everybody drinks coffee. A lot of tea drinkers around the world, right? So we ended up not doing that. Tea was kind of a whole other thing. And I did partner with a friend of mine, Phil Andre, who has the Motley Brew over in England, right? And now he has a little footprint at KK Steel Mill there in Wolverhampton. But he vended for me. He brought my Ellefson coffee in as the coffee, because he's a tea guy, right? So, of course, in England, everything's tea, right? So he brought me into Bloodstock and another festival. I forgot what it was, but you know, so he's been great with that. But as I think we did a tea thing one time we tried something, and it was just hard to get. It was just kind of hard to get traction with it, you know. But then I did end up doing some CBD coffee. There was a company. God, I think it might have even been here in Phoenix, in Tempe, and it was freaking strong. And again, I haven't had any mind-altering chemicals, you know, that affect you from the neck up, you know, for 33 years, right? So whenever something comes across, or like, you know, you're at a concert and you give me a Diet Coke and it shows up as a rum and Coke, one quick taste, like, whoa, yeah, this isn't mine, you know. In fact, it just happened to me on the Monsters Rock cruise. I was in the Dominican Republic, and I know for sure I ordered a virgin. I like virgin daiquiris, like a strawberry daiquiri. It's refreshing outside. And I saw pina colada. So I said, you know, virgin non-alcohol pina colada. And he said, no problem. So he brings it. And one drink, I was like, whoa. You know, I said, he goes, no, sir, it is not. I said, it is. I'm telling you right now, there's freaking booze in that. So he brought it back. So, you know, like, that's my responsibility to make sure that what passes these lips is, you know, not of a mind-altering chemical, you know. But so that the CBD coffee that I had was, man, I mean, it freaking, I just feel like I smoked a joint, but you could tell it was CBD of another level, man. And it was very expensive. It was, I mean, like a bag of coffee would be like $100 or something.
Oh,
you know? We just sold, like, well, you have that little package, like that. We have that same kind of thing there.
Wow.
It lasted for a while. And it just, you know, that stuff is, it's expensive. Most people don't drink it. You know, most people kind of go for the simplest. They're like, oh man, you make Keurig. And I investigated Keurig, and I mean, it was like 25, 30 grand just to get into that, you know.
Holy shit.
I always vowed I'm not using my rock and roll money to start a coffee company, you know. And it's like, you know, the coffee's kind of got to support itself, and kind of for a fun venture, you know. So
it's also good for the environment. There are like compostable Keurig cup things now, but just going coffee grain is much more eco-responsible in your part. So.
Well, and then too, you can get the receptacles that you pour it in. It's fine. And most people who are like hardcore Keurig people, they probably even have one of those. They can
exactly
over their Dunkin' or Starbucks or whatever they have in it, So, but yeah, I was not going into that. And, I looked at all that stuff and I just went, man, at this point, I'm going to have to go outside, get venture capital, and then I'm going to have to be the CEO. And next thing you know, I'll be looking at a base rather than playing it because I'll be too busy dealing with, shareholder mentality. I was like, yeah, that's not the point of the coffee company. The coffee, we have a hat, we have a shirt, we have coffee, so that's.
Well, good for you for having your priorities, your ducks in the row. 33 years ago, you made a decision, if you can talk about this, if you want to talk about this, becoming sober, no longer taking any mind-altering substances. Is that something you'd like to open up about that day, that time of your life that you just turned the page?
Well, honestly, it wasn't my idea. I mean, it was. Finally, it was. The initial thought of it was, I mean, I had a girlfriend who, found my, it was a chemical beyond beer and alcohol, right? So it was, and it was getting out of control. I mean, we, had some people in the group who, had gone down those roads. And look, you become a product of your environment, right? So when it's in the room, suddenly now you're doing it too. And so, so I came home after Donington in 1988, went to rehab. I was supposed to go 10 days. I lasted 3, and I went, what, fuck this. No girlfriend's worth this pain. I'm out of here, so I left. But then, and I went to a couple more treatment centers in 1989. And, it's funny, Doc McGee was managing us, and he goes, listen, we're here to make our bands very famous and a lot of money. And if you can do that, great. If you can't and you need help, we'll help you get help. If you don't want the help, there's the door, and it kind of went just like that. Right. And pretty soon, we were not able to get cleaned up in the group. And, we were writing what would become Rust in Peace at that time. And we just weren't able to turn the corner. So Doc, kept his promise and he let us go, there's the door. So, but then another manager came in, Ron the Feed, and he was really, he would always talk to me, and he knew Dave. He was kind of, his first fame was he was the tour manager for Armored Saint on the Wasp Metallica Armored Saint tour. And he was a big metalhead, and he loved Megadeth. He really got what we're doing. And so he'd always, as he moved around to different managers, he would always wanted to try to manage Megadeth. So finally, I said to Dave, I said, I think we should give this guy a shot. We don't have a manager. I think he's the right vibe. He gets it. And, and he came in and he met us where we were at, which was, stone cold fucking junkies. But he just said, he goes, that's what we did. No More Mr. Nice Guy for the Wes Craven movie. And he just said, he goes, listen, guys, it's all yours to have, but you got to get clean. If you don't get clean, it's all going to go away quickly. Like Capitol's waiting for you to make another record. And, and he was right. And so we all have to kind of hit that wall, hit that bottom where we just go, all right, I'm done, and as much as it had to be a group concerted effort, we all got to do this together. And there were others ahead of us who had done it. Motley Crue had done it, Aerosmith, a lot of the people were, now kind of famously getting clean and making their best records. And, suddenly it's a new day. And because, what happened was the record business and the managers, like Doc, they'd been down these roads with their clients and they were like, yeah, we're not doing this anymore. You know what I mean? Like a clean rock star is somebody that we can put our money and our time and our effort into. The junkies and the druggies, we're not interested anymore. It doesn't work. The 70s kind of wore itself out and into the 80s. And so by the time the 90s came around, which is ironic, isn't it? Because then a bunch of us get clean. We make these big records for us, Rust in Peace, Countdown, our 90s records were the sober records, and big years for us. And then it's ironic that the Seattle movement would come in, which pretty notorious. I remember pulling into the Seattle Center Arena on the Countdown tour, and everybody's eyes were pinned, which is a symptom. That's an indicator that you're on narcotics, right? And I'm going, where the fuck were you guys like 3 years ago when I was still a junkie? And now you're all here, like lined up down the driveway into the arena, But but yeah, it goes that way. And look, it's been the best thing that I ever did, and to be honest with you, a lot of it for me, I didn't grow up in a kind of drug and alcohol. I mean, there's alcohol in my house growing up. My parents had parties and stuff, but it wasn't something of I wouldn't consider a dysfunctional nature. So for me, it was kind of a sobriety sort of returned me back to probably the kid God wanted me to be, like, make music, be cool and get those distractions out of your life so you can, march down the road that the good Lord wanted me to go down.
And so many more bands now are just doing that, just clean, sober. A lot of the younger, very popular acts that are happening right now in metal, in rock, are proudly sober, proudly drug-free, and it's not about being straight edge or anything. So bands like you guys that pave the way and making being sober cool, and you can still create amazing things. As there was this mindset you were talking about in the late 70s, early 80s, that you had to be fucked up to make good things. Yeah. That is a fallacy, So it's cheers to you for doing
and,
that.
And when I started drinking, it's like you'd always go, well, I won't drink on stage. And I didn't. For the longest time, music was everything. And, the guitar player drank and I get pissed off because by the end of the night, he's like half baked.
Yeah.
The singer's smoking weed and forgetting the lyrics. It's like, geez, this sucks. You know what I mean? And I was like, I had no time for that. So, I didn't for really until I moved to California. I don't think I really ever drank or anything before I went on stage. I always played a sober, clear-headed show. And I moved to LA. And of course, I moved to LA and like cocaine's on the cover of Time magazine that year, and it's the Sunset Strip. I mean, it's everything. And it's like, look, there it is. And it's kind of like, man, this is everything that you saw in a freaking, a movie or a magazine. And it's just, again, you become a product of your environment. It's there, it's around. And not everybody was going down those roads, but we kind of seem to hang in those circles. And I don't regret it at all. I mean, I wouldn't have changed any of it, man. It was like I got to Hollywood at the fucking perfect time, man. I mean, the week we got there was just the best, So
I can only imagine.
Meet Dave, we start Megadeth, on it goes, and just to, and again, I kind of consider that, that was divine for both of us. He needed a real right hand man who was going to frickin' be there, and that was me. And I needed someone to frickin' pilot the jungle, and he knew his shit, and he grew up around the area, and I'm thankful for him every day. Despite all of it between me and Dave, I'm always thankful for him that he was the big brother to help me get through that, because just a kid from the farm landing in Hollywood, that's. Like they make Rock of Ages, isn't that about that with Juliana
exactly.
Hough? Exactly. I mean, that's me. That would have been me. But yeah. So look, it all worked out, right? So it's all good.
Serendipitous is the word that comes to mind.
Just a good word.
Yep. Just totally. Classic Vox&Hops question: soundtrack of your youth when you were growing up in your parents' or guardians' house. What music was playing when you were not in control of the radio? What music did your parents or guardians listen to?
Man, that is an awesome question. And I just filled out an email interview for somebody about that. And it's hard to put into words, so it's 100%. Easier to tell you. So my mom was the musical one. I always say when I got in the car with my dad, he'd turn the radio down. When I got in the car with my mom, she'd turn it up, and because my dad wanted to talk. He wasn't a musical guy. He was a verbal speaker kind of guy, talker guy, And so, look, it was on the radio. It was Neil Diamond. It was Smokey Robinson, this kind of stuff. My mom had Motown Records, Mary Wells. She had the Beatles, I Want to Hold Your Hand, 45. I listened to that. She was a big Elvis fan. And so she, sang in the church choirs. She was the musical one, So, and they bought a Wurlitzer organ, this is the early 70s, and that was kind of, in the Midwest or Main Street, USA, there's these sort of piano and organ shops, they bought a Wurlitzer organ, and they had a cassette player in it, which was like this brand new cutting edge technology in 1974 or whenever it was. But they also had a lot of country stuff, Charlie Pride, the Statler Brothers, all this, they were into that, like real, like classic country, not Johnny Cash or Willie Nelson, not really outlaw country, more just real traditional country and that kind of stuff. So that was what I heard. Olivia Newton-John, I remember when she first came out, and that was, kind of pop country, pop crossover stuff. So it was mostly that. And then when I got on the school bus, one year, my brother and I, we'd ride the bus for an hour, getting picked up on the
Wow.
farm into town. Yeah. And we had a bus driver. He was the pastor of our church. He was the pastor's son, Dwight. I remember his name, and he had long hair, super cool guy. And he always listened to WLS AM out of Chicago, which, it's funny. I just saw an article that I think AM stations are kind of going away. And as I've learned about this, AM stations, because they would broadcast the farthest away. And so I lived 8 hours down west of Chicago, but we could hear this station, and it had, they'd play everything from, like Sweet. I remember when Ballroom Blitz just came out. And so that Kiss, Shout It Out Loud, Bachman Turner Overdrive, Styx, all this kind of stuff. And then, along with it was other stuff like Chicago, of course, the early Chicago stuff. So, kind of what became FM rock was what I heard. And then that's when I first heard, rock and roll and like heavy rock and stuff. And that's what got me into BTO and Kiss and Styx and Sweet and all that stuff.
Massive cheers to Dwight.
Yeah, the pastor's son, you rule, dude. Thank you. I know, changed
for
my life.
Starting something, like
I figured it was divine. It was meant to be, right?
It seems to be the theme so far.
So far.
How about your first music experience? Like you going to see a show? What was that first show for you?
Well, look, around the area, I mean, at the Armory, there'd always be these dances, and I remember going to weddings and stuff with my parents, and it always was a country band, right, playing, and they'd have either their PD amps, their Fenders, the custom amps, right, and the custom PA with those kind of bubble wrapped, or So there was a lot of that around. So that was kind of my first exposure to it. And then, of course, when Kiss, I started to get into Kiss. There was a couple of like outcasts in school. And this is probably sixth grade, right? For me, fifth or sixth grade. And they were into Kiss. So, the Outlaws or the Outcast kids liked them, And I remember seeing them on the Paul Lynde Halloween special. So this was probably 76 because Destroyer had just come out. And then, that was it. I mean, I was all in once I saw that, and I still watch that on YouTube. I'll go watch it because it's so friggin' cool. And
super iconic. I'm gonna watch it now. I'm interested.
Yeah, Detroit Rock City. Yes, I think they played Detroit Rock City. I don't know if they did a second song. I think it was just one. Yeah, definitely look it up. It's as soon as you see it, you're like, if it's sixth grade, you're like, I want to do that. Like that looks
100%.
Like,
well, was it the imagery, the stage get-ups, the show, or the music, or was it just the whole package?
Every bit of it. It was just of another level. You know what I mean? It's just, and I think with that is that they made rock and roll like this fantasy. Like you just drift off and you detach from living on a farm in Minnesota. And again, I didn't have a bad upbringing at all. It was really great actually, but it was just this, you just float off into another time and space, and they sold that whole thing, and I bought every bit of it, So I remember my mom, I begged her to take me and my friend Greg and my brother, and he took a buddy. We all went up to Minneapolis. It was the Met Center in Bloomington. Rock and Roll Over tour. So it was Sunday, February 6, 1977, and saw them on the Rock and Roll Over tour with Uriah Heep as the special guest. And I think the tickets, advance was $5. Day of show was $6. So we bought ours in advance, And it was the first time I bought a T-shirt at a show, and of course I buy some shitty bootleg outside.
But you didn't know.
A bad poster that's out of focus, and some T-shirt that once I washed it just fell apart.
So you see them on a 76 Halloween special, and then 4 months later, basically, you see them live. You were persistent with your mother and your family to get you at this show.
My mom got it because, again, she was an Elvis fan. And the guitar player from Elvis, Scotty Moore, he's got a great website. If you go to, I think it's scottymoore.net or whatever, and he's got it. I mean, he's got every show, everything he's ever done is indexed there, and the Elvis stuff. I think it was 1956. He played the Veterans Auditorium in Des Moines, Iowa. And my mom, because she grew up in Iowa, so she went to go see him. And there's like an upright bass, and Elvis is doing his thing, and there. My mom said the place it wasn't very full. It was maybe a couple thousand people or something, and she was right down in the front and got Elvis's scarf.
Cool.
And yeah, so I look at the picture on Scotty's website, and I look at it and I go, I can't believe my mom is down in the mosh pit at an Elvis. And my mom's down. So, she got it, man. She knew it. Even years, she passed away in 2016. And I remember talking to her a year or two before that, and she was just like, she's like, you had just such a better life getting off the farm. And I mean, these were nice farms. These were big farms, and they made a lot of money. I mean, believe me, I jumped off the farm and dove straight into destitute poverty out in Hollywood as we were starting Megadeth. So sometimes I wonder, but I remember once I got there, I'm walking down Hollywood Boulevard going, this fucking sucks, man. What a hellhole. This isn't like anything like on TV where it's all,
shiny and perfect.
Yeah, like I'd watch Chips and Charlie's Angels and this kind of stuff. And that was a very different LA than what the reality of walking down Hollywood Boulevard. Smog everywhere. My nose hurt. I remember it was just, ugh. And, but I'm just going, I mean, I'm not going home, I'm not going to go run the farm. It's just not, my brother's going to do that. That's not in the cards for me. So it's kind of like, well, roll up your sleeves, we're going in, so, everything that came with it, as we talked about earlier with the beer.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. How about your first time on stage? Do you remember your first show ever?
I do. It's funny. So we're, in Dieth now, we're a three-piece that I also sing in. My very first band, we were a three-piece that I was one of the singers with the guitar player. And, it's one of these, like, we play, I think our name was Headstone. It was like the most metal, macabre thing we could come up with at like age 12 or whatever I was. And the guitar player and the drummer were 2 years older than me. They were in my brother's graduating class. And so we played on Mike, the guitar player's, the porch of his parents' house or something, but it's one of those, you got stage clothes, you got your shoes, of course you got platforms because that's what Kiss wore. We've kind of got like our shiny shirts and our bell bottoms and all this stuff. And, of course the guitar player's amp stops working in the gig. So, you get your real dose of like, this is what it's like being on stage, gear break. You might have broken a string. I mean, just everything that can go wrong goes wrong, and welcome to showbiz. It ain't as easy as it looks.
No, but we pretend that it really is. It's not.
It's our job is to make it look easy. Garth Samuelson always said that. He said, I make the hard stuff look easy while all the guys at MTV make all the easy stuff look hard.
Like, that's true. Yeah. Damn. Yeah. To Hell and Back, coming out June 2nd via Napalm. Dieth. People are, new band, a new chapter. Something I think is amazing is that you're never finished. A lot of people would have just stopped and been satisfied having such a vast, legendary musical career. Right. You're still hungry. You're still playing. You're still doing something new. To Hell and Back is exactly that. It's very extreme. I was surprised when I heard the first singles that you were a part of something so extreme. So talk to me about that first off. The music extremity, obviously, we're putting Entombed AD members, Decapitated, very extreme bands right there, classic bands in the death metal scene, which Cryptopsy is very closely tied to. Talk to me about the extremity of Dieth first, please.
Well, so I got introduced to Guilherme on email. It was January 2022, so about a year and a half ago. My friend Christian, who plays drums in Dead by Wednesday, which is a group out of Connecticut, and I'd put out a record for him on my Combat label. Mm-hmm. And, he's played drums for me on some stuff. And actually, all stuff I've done right here in the studio. So Guilherme sends me the track. I get an introduction, kind of a quick backstory, and it was like, all right, look, new year, new month, new friends, new introductions. I hear the track. I go, okay, definitely new sound, new music. So I come here to the studio and I plug in and I record in the Hall of the Hanging Serpents, right here behind me. And, what hit me was just like, man, this is like, not only is it heavy, and again, I'd had some experience with this, to the exposure to this kind of music with Max Cavalera when I had worked with him with Soulful. Which I'd recorded here at another studio in Phoenix, and great, super fun with Max. Very relaxed, very casual. He would just kind of let me do whatever I wanted, and it was just just kind of, hey, be David Ellefson. I'm like, all right, but it's still your band. You wrote the song. Any input? And he's like, just do you be David Ellefson. So Max is just such a sweet guy, and So that, and of course, I've worked with Andreas Kisser of Sepultura, you know,
Mhm.
so that's, so I've had some exposure kind of through them. So I've had a little bit of experience with how some of the note choices and the chording is. And I noticed Guilherme's vocals they had a very listenable quality. And I attribute that to him also being of Brazilian Portuguese of his native language, because it's a Latin love language, so it's very musical, and it has I think even though they're of a different native tongue, when they sing in English, I say they meaning Max and both Guilherme, that it's listenable, and there's a melodic thing about it. You can understand it if you speak English like I do. So it connected with me, and so we mixed the track. I went to Europe. We shot the video. We
Mhm.
popped it out in July, and we were kind of going. I mean, I just hit Guillermo one day, and I was just getting restless. It was July, and I'm like, fuck it, let's put that song out. Let's just do it. It's so we just dropped it on my Facebook. We just popped it up, and I mean, it's just within minutes. It's like it was just blowing up.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was, it was
People were waiting for new stuff. So
yeah, and it was very unexpected. I mean, I'd done the Lucid at this point. I'd done a few things that people
Mhm.
really liked, and they were like, "Wow, this is refreshing. It doesn't sound like anything you've done before." So I think most of the stuff that I've done here the last couple of years, it's all new. It's all fresh. The Ellefson Soto records,
Yeah.
out. I have some Kings of Thrash material. It's very different. I didn't just sort of hit the default button and go back to what I've always done. Let that kind of reside in its own world. And now, new friends, new songs, new journey.
I think it's exciting. I think it's really cool that at this point in your career, so many countless amazing shows, amazing albums, you're still pushing your boundaries and comfort levels when approaching songwriting and playing and just almost crafting like a new identity.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. In fact, in some ways, I think the world is kind of getting to know David Ellefson for who I fully am, in every band you've got a role, you do, kind of part of you.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of what your fans grow up with. They sort of expect you in that role. They're comfortable with you with that. So first of all, I always thank, the fans that have followed me and stayed with me. And that's why, again, I think with Kings of Thrash, I did that as an honorarium to, to the Megadeth stuff, and to an era that I was very much a fabric of, and even a writer of some of that stuff. That you don't really hear it very much anymore. So it was done as a way to honor that. So as I'm doing new things, it's not like, oh, screw my past, I'm out, I'm done, and who cares about that? It's like, no, that's the reason I'm able to do all this other stuff, and I want those fans to come with me. I think that's that it's important that piece is connected. And so that's and that's just kind of a transitional process that I've really tried to be mindful of. And but yet as I'm doing new things, and doing it in several different settings, not trying to go, well, I'm going to play some death metal, and I'm going to do some alt rock, and I'm going to do some power metal. Oh, by the way, I can do some, trying to do that all in one band. People be like, dude, what the fuck is this guy doing? So I think just doing it in separate settings, you got to go, oh, the Lucid is that, because I've had a lot of people come up to me and say, man, I think that's some of the best stuff you've ever done. And these are kind of more mainstream rocker
Mhm.
type, right? And awesome, man. And then I do these interviews with Dieth, and people are, metalheads and stuff are blown away, just going, dude, this is like next level, like the bass playing is next level. And I never thought I'd hear that, especially after Megadeth, because a lot of that stuff is pretty complex, and it was pretty deep, and musically. And then for people to really, I think, kind of latch on to and appreciate how hard we worked on this record, and the sort of how muscular the music is. I mean, to play bass to the Diet stuff, trust me, it is not easy, because it requires a very fat string, tuned really low. And I mean, you're grabbing on it. It's like UFC of bass, man. You're like wrestling with this thing to get it, supposed to get it articulated and get it to sound good. And it's a lot of work, you know. And there are days I go, God, what was I thinking? I went the wrong way. I should be playing like country music or something now, which should be easy. Instead, I went harder. It's like, let's play something that's even more complex,
more challenging. I like that.
More challenging.
I definitely want to talk about your identity as a musician. I think that's something for myself, Cryptopsy. We haven't released an album in a long time. We haven't toured since 2019. I've been doing the podcast hard since throughout the whole pandemic. I'm looking forward to falling back into getting back, releasing a new album soon. We just signed to Nuclear Blast, to falling back into that identity of myself. So for yourself for so long and for so many years, the basis of Megadeth was your identity. Is that something that, and I've read that you had to like mourn, there was a period of mourning to get over that. Is that something that you will ever be able to get past, even for yourself, having this identity being such a big part of you?
You know, I think the original morning of that happened in 2002 when the band just ended suddenly out of nowhere. It was just, that was not a call I was expecting to get. I mean, it didn't totally surprise me, I guess, because of some stuff kind of leading up to it, but that was not the call. Because Nick Menz always used to joke about that in the 90s when things were hard. He goes, oh, maybe we should just break up and reform under a new name, right? So when it actually happened, I was like, what the hell? Like, we were serious about this, you know? So that was probably the hardest one. And my family was very young. You know, that's one of the most expensive parts of your life is raising your kids at that age.
100%.
So, you know, I think that one was probably the hardest corner to turn. And you know, when I went back to Megadeth in 2010, you know, when Sean Drover had called me and then you know, and everything, I mean, it felt great, and it was just a natural thing for it to happen, right? But I was tentative because I was like, you know, I don't know. And I mean, so I agreed to come back for a month. You know, I figured I'll tell you what, I'll because you know, sadly, Lamenza was on his way out the door at that point. So I was like, look, you need a bass player. I'm the only guy who's going to be able to do this. And I'm the only guy. Again, divine, right? It's supposed to happen. It just did. And so finally I was just like, okay, just get over yourself. Just go do it. It's just, and if it works for a month. So we finished the month, and then we were going to go to South America. And I was like, all right, that was pretty cool. And I liked it, and we all liked it. We were having fun. So went to South America, and then we went to Europe, then we did the Big Four, and, you know, on and on and went. And then 11 years later, you know, so it just continued on.
Wow.
And, look, I think, you know, we planned on, should have just ended that way, you know, but whatever, you know, so it didn't. And, you know, so I think, you know, when it happened that I was suddenly just not, you know, out of the group, I was just kind of, I was a little like, all right, that's weird. But I just kind of sat with it for a bit. I had the Lucid record all ready to go. I'd already had the Ellefson Soto record in motion. So I'd already had other things. So for me, musically, it wasn't so much a place of just sitting there empty where I had to do that, because I'd already been through that in 2002, and I spent the 2000s with F5 and Temple Brutality and Soulfly and these things. So I knew it was going to be okay. You know, I knew. So
you're just like basically like moving pots around off the back burner into the forward into the main burner.
Move that other pot up, turn it off, water, you know, the pasta in. You know, that's
there's that fool me once, you know, shame on. There's that saying, and you were ready for that.
So when I went back to it in 2010, I was not going to, and look, I was all in. I mean, I wasn't, once we decided, you know, I wasn't like sort of tentative about it. I was all in, right? But at the same time, as my phone rang to do other things and as other opportunities came along, I sort of, you know, I balanced them to go, yeah, I got a couple months off. Let's go, you know, work on some new stuff, and always just kind of keep planting some seeds. And also, I think it's the world we live in now that, you know, I watched other people around me, they were doing it as well. People weren't just being
multifaceted.
I mean, like Vivian Campbell was back doing Last in Line, you know, where he came from, which, you know, I guess kind of inspired me a little bit with Kings of Thrash, you know, to do the same thing, kind of go back to an era. So I think we live in a world that's, you know, certain people, certain members of groups, they maybe because they own the whole group, they don't ever do anything else, and that is their identity. But for me, I enjoyed the 2000s where I got to spread my wings. We did Metal Allegiance.
Yeah,
We
that was
got,
super cool, man.
yeah, so we did these things, and it's fun to do it with my friends. So I kept that going, and so that's why I was even Dieth. I think when I got the email about it in the first track, I was just kind of like, look, well, why not? Sure, let's do it. And then kind of came this crossroads where it's like, okay, well, am I just going to play bass for Guilherme songs, or should I sort of step up and start offering some things? And I did. I sent some folders of stuff over to Guilherme and Mihal, and they really liked it. And then comes that point of, are we going to really make it work?
We take this serious. We taking this relationship to the next level.
And Guilherme did. He really did. He said, man, there's some good stuff in this folder, and I definitely want to use it. And so then I started moving, sending some Heavy as the Crown. When I started kind of writing more completed ideas and stuff, those made the transition. So now I look at it like it's really a great home to have, to be have a new home that's, again, pushing the envelope even farther than I've done in the past. And again, with and it's exciting to make music with some new friends and sort of feel it out to see what's where we can go with it. And now taking it on tour this summer and onto the stages, and that's a whole other level. Like, how does this work on stage and developing a live show? Because initially you're just a band up there kind of playing your songs.
That's true.
And then it's about, moving that forward. Are we feeling it, and can we develop this into a live show, which I think this one can. So, it just feels like it's got all the right pieces in it to just keep moving it forward now.
That makes me very excited, the live things. And if you ever come to Montreal, I'm going to come hang out for sure. Something that I dislike, and I'm sort of a part of the problem, but I try not to be, is press and clickbait garbage questions, and people love to ask you shitty things, and that's not what I'm about to do. But my question is for you: how do you feel about this garbage press that loves to trap you because you're so generous in interviews?
Well, I appreciate that. Look, I've tried to be very, I guess generous would be the word, to people. Like, if Joe's headbanger.net comes along, wants to do an interview, he's just looking to get any foothold in to kind of make a name and get in there. And look, as long as he's knowledgeable and he's not a creep, and he's, asks decent questions and he's in it for the spirit of it, I've usually granted those people interviews, and you find out pretty quickly which ones had the ulterior motive of trying to bait you with things. And again, obviously the hot button topic is the Megadeth stuff, and from a couple years ago and all that. And look, I've already addressed it, and the truth of it is I would, like I've said in other interviews, the fans, we don't want to see our heroes fighting, man. It's regardless of anything,
it takes away from the music.
You really do, and it's again, being a Kiss fan, when Ace Frehley, his solo album was my favorite. Second was Paul Stanley, and then Gene, then Peter, and so when Ace went solo, it didn't have quite the same appeal because he wasn't in the band. But look, I paid attention to it because I knew he could write songs, and he's my superhero, with what he had the makeup on, and so it's again, I think it's important to always honor and respect your past, and you don't throw rocks at it, you don't kick dirt at it, you try not to talk any smack about it, because look, there's volumes and volumes of books of shit we could all write. And even these memoirs. I mean, I remember when Joel McIver gave me to write mine. I just got back to Megadeth. Dave was writing his, and he said he encouraged me to write it, and he said, "Look, you and Dave are the two bookends of the Megadeth story. Of course, you should write a book." And Dave really supported it. I ran it by him. I let him read it, and he had some good constructive criticism for me, just kind of mechanically with how the book flowed and everything. And so he was helpful to me with that. And that was good. We kind of joked we were kind of like brothers, Jonathan and David out of the Old Testament, I'd rather be preserved like that rather than Cain and Abel. So
Yes.
I mean, again, you're in a band. If you've been in a band with anybody for more than a couple of minutes, there's
We don't get along all the time. Yeah.
and you don't always get along, and you kind of go, do we make great music? Yeah. Does it work on stage? Yeah. Is it working? Yeah. So like in any work relationship or marriage or otherwise, you kind of gotta sort of, go along to get along, man. And it's the fact that Dave and I did it for as long as we did. And the heart, the early years were difficult, but there was a lot of fun with them as well,
Of course. And that's the importance. And the fact that you still honor your past is amazing. And it's because they're without going through what we go through in life, we would never get to where we are. So to throw shade at it or
well,
is
and you
totally
look
useless.
at it, it's like, since the transition has happened, again, I'm very thankful for everyone, yourself included, the press and fans who have really, hung by me and said, all right, let's see what's next, let's see what's going on. And so I think just putting out quality material is always the number one thing, right? Just
Absolutely.
make it, that's number one. And then hey, look, I'm thankful for every interview, every recording session, every time I get on stage, because one day that'll be the last one. You'll die, or
Isn't that weird? Yeah. Isn't that scary?
Happen.
Yeah. I have moments like that sometimes when I'm on stage and I'm like, what if this is the last one? Like what if this is it?
One day it will be,
Exactly,
what I mean?
yeah.
That's why in 2002, like Nick Menza, he'd always, he'd be at home. He'd just go, man, I can't wait to get on the road. Then we get on the road and he's bitching about not being at home. And I'm like, Nick, and I was just saying, dude, one day this will be the last one. It really will be. And, something will happen. And maybe the fans just don't like us anymore. We watched that happen to a lot of our friends, suddenly one day they're like, yeah, music's changed. We're done with you. And so I said, man, just try to be thankful. And, Nick was a good dude, but it was just that thing that, he was Italian. He was a homebody. He liked being home, So, but yes, so, you're right. One day that'll be it, so look, we have our health. We can still play, we can still hear, we can still be decent, we can get on stage, and so it's to me now it's kind of about just being appreciative for all of that. And look, let's face it, it's fun. I mean, you go, why are we still making records? It's fun. It's like, right? I mean, sitting in the studio.
I think it's so cool. It's a very inspiring the way you are.
Making just fucking death metal with a bunch of guys eating pierogies and hanging out. It's like, fucking come on, it's fun. Like, who wouldn't want to do this?
I love it. One last question. I've been doing this new segment called Fight the Hops, where I ask my guests a small term goal, something they're working on that they hope to accomplish within the next month, 2 months. What are you doing right now to fight the hops?
To fight the hops. So it's funny. I just did a blood draw conversation with my naturopath, so I'm trying to keep my triglycerides low.
Okay, interesting.
I saw the whole blood panel. I'm like, good. Yeah, look, that one's probably so. The truth of, and I got to say, living a clean life has helped. I know, everybody on the Ellefson side, they all die of heart disease and diabetes and all this shit. So again, you kind of know what's coming. So it's like, do your best. That's why I'm at the gym, and this morning I'm riding my bike, I'm swimming, I'm training with a train. Today was leg day, so
Hell
it's
yes.
like, now I'm in the studio. So it's just, every day is kind of that thing of just make sure you're still standing upright and breathing, and, because look, it's also about quality of life, right? It's, I've been very blessed to have a healthy life. I have not had a lot of problems other people have unfortunately had to go through, so I've 58 years on the planet. It's been pretty friggin' good, so it's try to keep it that way is the goal now. That's the
Hell yes, I like that very much. You're an inspiration, legend. People, I can say that. You're a legendary dude. I'm very stoked to have had this chat with you. Everyone go check out Dieth, To Hell and Back. Coming out June 2nd, Napalm Records. David, this was amazing. I really appreciate you taking the time. Massive cheers to you.
Appreciate it, man. Thanks, man.
Hey, thank you all so much for listening right to the end. You know that I love and appreciate that. Man, this was an awesome conversation, an awesome experience to hang out with another living legend. David has done so much in his career, and he is still so creative and so hungry. I think that is truly inspiring. Massively stoked to have had the opportunity to sit down and have a chat with David. I'm very stoked about his new band, Dieth. You should go check it out. The most extreme project that he's ever been a part of, and I think that's super cool. Always evolving. His life is a bunch of unique experiences and life decisions that brought him exactly to where he is today, having been in one of the most successful thrash metal bands in the world, and now still evolving and still doing interesting musical projects. I think that's super awesome. You should definitely get ready for their album, To Hell and Back. It drops this Friday. You should definitely check it out. Now, if you enjoyed this Vox and Hops episode, you should sign up to the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast's mailing list. You can do that on my website, voxandhops.com. That's VOXANDHOPS.com. When you do that, you shall receive one email a week that contains all of the details of everything that has happened recently in the world of the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast. You'll get to see which episodes I dropped recently. You will get to see which episodes I have coming up. You will get to hear about any projects I have in the works before I announce them to the public, and you will get to see which albums the Vox and Hops album review crew have reviewed recently, and you'll get to see which albums Jerry Monk, Vox and Hops' metal architect, has added to the Brutal Awakenings playlist. There is always a lot of stuff going on in the world of the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast, and I hate when you miss a single thing, so please do me a favor and sign up to the mailing list. The Vox and Hops Metal Podcast is brought to you by Sound Talent Media and Evergreen Podcast. I hope you have a killer rest of the week. I have one more episode, another episode. I had mentioned there'd only be one this week, but that's not true because I'm dropping another one this Friday with Vespasian and Horaz of Imperium Decadence. But until then, remember to enjoy life, metal, and craft beer. Cheers, Vox and Hops heads.